Welcome to the Corporate Venturing Insider Series, where I interview top practitioners in the CVC world and learn with you the best practices and golden nuggets that they have accumulated over their career. In this episode, we will be learning from Hee Suk Jung, Head of Investment at SK Gas. Hee, could you take a few minutes to share your story and how you got to where you are today?
Great, of course. First of all, thank you for having me. It's great to be here. Just to share a little bit about my story could suggest a different perspective to some of you, where I do not have fancy education background with PhD, nor with career path with financial banking, consulting, nor I have explored, decided, and choose to become the head of investment as a CVC arm. I didn't choose to be here, but I got here somehow, and I'd like to share a little bit of my story about that. My journey brought me to where I am today from corporate perspective, other than my personal point of view. I joined SK back in 2008 and started an engineering and construction arm of SK. As you probably know, that SK is a conglomerate with a number of operating companies. And today SK has 2 holdings companies and 150 operating companies within. And SK Engineering and Construction was one of the many operating companies, and they were really strong in plant construction projects and started as a procurement manager for electrical and system buyer. Soon the company sent me to Houston to start a global procurement office, and I was in charge of global procurement office for projects in Americas. And after spending about 3 years in Houston, I moved back to Korea to work directly with the CEO. That's where I got to see how the giant company like SK is moving its needles. Then the company asked me to join a new project and manage. So I was put into an oil sand project with Suncor in Canada and worked as an area project manager, and actually moved to Canada and led the module program for the project from Canada for about 3 years. So now that I have 3 years in Houston and 3 years in Canada, I went back to Korea to lead the module team. And after a little while, the owner of SK Discovery, which is one of the holdings company of SK, suggested that I move to SK Gas, where I am now, and learn more about the gas market. So all the things that I've been doing in engineering and construction company was to do with oil product, and now I was transferring into gas market. So I was able to learn different gas products, trading markets, and I was getting a good coverage on oil and gas, and things quickly started to focus more on decarbonization and clean energy. So I was put into a new role to look into electrification of everything. And because we needed innovative technology and forward-thinking teams around this market, I was asked to lead the investment effort from Silicon Valley. That's when I first put my foot into the door of CVC. This was back in 2017, and we started investing into clean tech and climate tech, which includes not only electrification of everything, but now also including hydrogen, ammonia, and carbon capture technology as well. Long story short, I had different mandates that company has given me, from oil to chemical to gas to decarbonization to electrification of everything and to hydrogen and ammonia in the energy space. And recently, a new mandate has been added on to my team, which is Metaverse, Web3, and NFT. So there is quite a spin into different areas. And I'm also having to look at property tech, and there's another operating company within bioscience. So I also look into bioscience a little bit in cancer vaccines on the orphan drugs. So I'm not only in energy space, but in other industries as well. And that's really exciting, being a CVC, being able to put my hands on different industries. We have the company which owns commercial buildings like office buildings and apartments, and we are marrying the physical properties into digital world. And that's what we are trying to do with Metaverse, Web3, and NFT. So I don't think I had the luxury of being able to choose my path and do what I like to do, but I have been made to look into new areas, and every step of the way has been such a challenge, learning new things. Like right now, I'm learning about Metaverse, I'm learning about property tech, I'm talking to real estate companies at the same time, and bioscience, some of the vocabularies I don't even understand. but I'm having to study all the new industries and learning from the startups and the ecosystem. And that's a very difficult challenge. But leading the VC arm for the past 4 or 5 years has been a challenge, but also very fun because of that. And I'm very happy with what I do.
Very nice. Thank you. So it's interesting because your first part of your career, it nearly feels like it's a perfect design to become head of investments in energy, where you move from topics to topics. And now that you're head of investment, I feel like you're moving to the next phase, which is about learning topics you have not prepared in your previous career path. So let's go step by step. How much do you think it was valuable for you to become head of investments in energy space, having done all these different topics, all related to energy?
I think having that experience between different products in the oil and gas industry, I understand the pain of being an oil and gas company now trying to decarbonize all the products they have, walking away from the fossil fuel oriented assets. And being able to decarbonize and also adapting hydrogen and electrification solutions on top of oil and gas infrastructure is very difficult. Having those different experience, I gained that respect from the other team members that I understand and coming from the same background, and I'm trying to put innovation on top of them. So being a CVC, you are a strategic investor trying to make the change in your mother company by putting in innovative technology, and just by making the investment doesn't happen. Right. You need to be able to understand the technology, and you got to connect it to the right team members in Korea so that it actually gets practiced. Moving from different products within oil and gas has been a fantastic experience for me to be able to understand how to work with the operation team in Korea. And I'm trying to copy paste that into different industries, like I mentioned about prop tech, bioscience, and metaverse, because I'm trying to understand their market first before I even suggest anything. I learned the way of working instead of the product itself. I learned the way of working with the new people in the new industry, in the new areas.
And that's a golden nugget, which is don't push innovations to your teams in the mothership, but try to understand their pain points and how they work. And then you can find maybe the best win-win.
Exactly. Yep.
I want to triple click on this one. But do you have a best practice in terms of how to find that win-win? Do you think it's better to start first with the mothership and really understand the pain points and then look for the ecosystem and the startups? Or do you think it's good to not have that filter, but to look wide into the ecosystems and the startups and the entrepreneurs, and then try to identify which ones might be of interest to the mothership, and then try to see if there is a pain point?
I think there's a pros and cons, and I try both ways. Depending on the areas, because some solutions like energy efficiency, for example, like if there's an energy efficiency for office buildings or there's an energy efficiency solution for plants, we can do a quick demo or do a pilot project in the real test bed in Korea. And after 6 months of learning, if it starts to work, then people appreciate the solution being there, then it's much easier for me to make an investment. But on the other hand, if I wanted to put money into hydrogen production unit, we cannot do a pilot. We literally have to look at the value chain of where we want to be in the hydrogen market and make a massive investment into the hydrogen production units so that we can actually copy paste the plant into Korea and start generating hydrogen from ourselves. So there's two different approach depending on the solutions. And I also need to understand the vibe and how the team works in Korea. So understanding the culture and what they're really looking for is a really important aspect of being a CVC. And CVC is not too different from VC, how it works, but the key difference will be actually understanding how to make this into business rather than just financial success of getting the investment back. So our true investment back is actually doing work with a solution that we invested in. I would say that to be able to answer your question, it's been a fantastic experience looking at the both sides and try a different approach.
Very nice. And I will touch on KPIs later, but let's go to the second part. So we talked about the first part where it's about your career really helped you to be really good at the energy space. But now you're starting to touch about topics you've never learned before. And so here I want to understand how you feel about how much of your past experience and maybe learning to learn and understanding your mothership is helping you to go into topics you don't know and learn very fast.
Very good question. And I'm still trying to find the answer for that question, but I will try to answer here. I think the first thing that I'm trying to find out is, why are we trying these things? Are we just trying these things to make money? I don't think that's why. We are trying to be responsible for social burdens, and that's why we are trying to decarbonize. And also, we are trying to provide a better service to our customers. And in order for us to do that, we need to keep looking into new industries to transform our company. If we stay in one place, we will actually be going backwards. So in order for us to step forward and keep pushing forward, we need to look into new industries and new spaces. And that's what I'm having to do. After COVID-19 hit, most of our bioscience offices were having a little bit of difficulties raising money and trying to get into new spaces. Even though COVID-19 was a disastrous event that took place to humankind, for bioscience companies within SK, it was a huge benefit for them. And they made a lot of money in there. And now that they earned that money from COVID-19, which is not the most happy money that we got, how can we use this money to return back to the society, to do good? So in order for us to do that, we need to put money into the new vaccines and new medicines that will actually help the humankind. Now I understand why they're asking me to look into bioscience. For property tech, now they're asking me to look into property tech because so many people work from home. What can we do to make your home better?
So can you describe your investment committee members, who they are, how many of them? Do they need to all vote yes or only a majority?
We have 4 members in investment committee. We shrunk it to 4. And the 4 members are CEO, CFO, strategic officer, and myself. So I bring the investment opportunity to them so that they learn that, okay, this is maybe a good opportunity to invest. And these 3 people will look at from their perspective, CEO being at the overall company, CFO looking at the financials, and strategy officer looking at the strategy of the company. Does it match with what we are going for? But before I even go to investment committee, I do a prior conversation well ahead. So I will come up with maybe 10 shortlisted solutions that I'm interested in, and I will pick out the final 2 that I have the biggest conviction of, and I will show them both of them, hey, this one has this pros and cons, and this one has pros and cons. And which one should we go for? I tilt towards this one. And they all say, yeah, let's go with this, and let's do the due diligence. So we do the 2 times. Should I do the due diligence on this one or this one? And they say this one. And once I do this and I have a good result from the due diligence, then I usually get pretty good pass on the investment. So I do a lot of work before I even go to investment committee meeting. And once the committee meeting happens, that's a quick yes in 30 minutes.
Is there sometimes times where this pre-check is also helping you to identify other people you should talk to in the corporation to get more support?
Very much. I think you hit the nail on the head, where when I do the pre-investment committee meeting, they usually make very good suggestions. Hey, maybe you should work with this guy in the head office. They're looking at that already, and they should be able to help you with financial model. And you should talk to this guy. They will be able to help you with the operation model. So I get a lot of help by exposing certain deals and explaining to them. And that process is very important because I get to have the right support from the head office. And then that really gets me going in terms of meeting the timeline for the startup's investment timeline. Yeah.
What I think is very interesting is your investment committee members are the top of the company. And they could be tempted to say, only go for the ones which we know will have engagements right away. But what you're saying is actually, no, you can have a longer term vision. And it seems like your investment committee is buying into the, let's look at it from the long-term strategy versus just the short-term benefits. Is that something that you had to convince them and educate them, or was it something that was already obvious to them?
That's another very good question, because we actually started off with a long-term vision. So we started with a very small amount of investments. It wasn't 1 to 50 million. It was 1 to maybe 5 million. And we were looking at very early stage companies for having to do something with them in the next 5 or 7 years later. But over the course of investments, the breadth of that has shortened so much that now they wanted me to look for some solutions that they can use right away tomorrow. So it went to really far looking at the future to really short-sighted tomorrow solution. And now we are going back to the long-term solutions. Because of the metaverse and new technologies coming into the market, then now we need to have a longer vision. Energy, we are the experts in energy and we know what we are looking for. So we've only been making direct investments and we didn't get into any VC funds as an LP for energy investments because we know what we are looking for. But the things that we are not sure of, such as metaverse, NFT, and Web3, we are going to join VCs as an LP and also start looking at the long-term goals. I think it was not only the education internally and also the understanding of the market, but it's just the trend, how it made us to think, okay, we can look for short-term goals in this space, but this space, we should be more patient and look for the long-term goal. So we are taking actually two different approaches depending on the areas.
I think there's a golden nugget here too, which is that you're looking at investing as an LP in other VCs. When this is a topic you're not deep knowledgeable from the corporation, versus where you already have deep expertise like in energy, that's where you can make direct investments versus going as an LP. Is that for you a good guidance for other CVCs?
Yes, very much. I'm glad that I landed on this point because beginning, I didn't know that. So I thought just being able to make investment was my happiness. I don't care if it's long-term, short-term, I just wanted to make investment. But now I am putting much more thoughts and meanings into the money that I spend. So I want that capital to be a smart capital for the startup too. When I'm putting my money into energy companies, not my money, our company money into startups, I know that's a smart money because we know what we are going to do with the solution. We even think about how to make that solution into a business model. And how can we help this company to grow? And what is your exit strategy? Do you want to go IPO or do you want to be acquired by some other company? We will help you with it. But for the other industries that we are not really expertised, it makes better sense that we put money in and we learn with them. And then we can, along the way, suggest different things and see if we can connect the solution to other solutions to be better. Yeah.
Actually, I like your lapsus of saying my money, because financial VCs, they have a GP commit where people put their own money next to the fund. In CVCs, it's quite rare, but it's good to have that mindset that this is, if it was your own money, you need to respect that money and make sure this is valuable and it brings value. So I actually like your lapsus. One thing that could be very useful for many CVCs that are listening, because quite a few have 10 team members in the investment committee, and I'm sure many of them wish to reduce it to a smaller number. Do you have any tips on how you have managed to reduce from 10 to 4? That's a very sensitive topic.
Very, because if you start with 10, it only gets larger because if it was 10 and it becomes 8, and those two people who got cut on the committee meeting, they will feel left out and they're not going to be very happy. So what happened was we started with a very big group, and actually the owner of SK came into the meeting and saw all these people and, hey guys, this is not going to work. So it was more like a top down. Who actually understands the innovative technology in energy? I think it's only you and you. So you guys don't need to come in. So he organized the members in the investment committee rather than us shrinking it to 3 or 4. And if we had to do it ourselves, it would have been very challenging. And I might still be dealing with 10 other investment committee meeting members. Okay. So it was more of a top down. And I already know quite a few CVCs dealing with 8 or 9 investment committee members. It's really important that you cut down that number by using different tactics, because everybody only looks at from their perspective, not from they will come up with 10 other reasons why it's not going to work, rather than looking for one reason that's going to work. And if you put that into 10 people's mouth, that becomes 100 reasons not to work. It's really important that you shrink that number. And the tip for you is to talk to the person who really has that investment committee, and let's shrink the number. That's the best way. Don't do it yourself, because the people are not going to like you if you say that.
Yeah. So you were lucky to have a very smart leader.
Yes, I was very lucky. I was actually getting chills when he was saying that. He was awesome.
Yeah, I can imagine. Anything else that he did that really helped your CVC?
I think the idea of making the CVC came from him. He's been exposed to a lot of the faculty members from Stanford, and he has connections to many other companies here in US. And he was learning that this innovative culture and open innovation growing with the startups was really something that he needed to bring into the company. And he was looking for the right person to do so. And all the past forward experience that I had that I shared with you in the beginning of this call, I think he was building me up to this level where I am now able to lead the investment arm because I'm a connector. I don't make things happen at all. Like I said, my money, it's not even my money, but I'm not making things happen the way the startups want me to make it happen. I'm just a connector. So I need to understand what the head office is doing. And I need to understand what's going on in the technology sector and ecosystem. And I'm connecting them in the middle. It's very important that I understand all the mother company, what they're doing, and also understanding this side of it. And I'm being a very efficient and a good connector here to create something new. Yeah.
Sometimes I feel like we are the membrane and we find this way of osmosis. And if you need to push too hard, then it was not meant to be.
Exactly.
So then you must be an extremely good connector. Let's talk about KPIs. What it is that you measure for you and for your team.
I think about that every 6 months because in the beginning, the first KPI was the number of investments. So when I first started CVC, I was given that you should make 3 investments per year at least.
Oh, wow.
And I was doing it. I was trying to meet that target number and I made it for the first 2 years. And I was like, this is not the best way because I started not to care about the capital itself, what the meaning is. Because I just need to make 3 investments and I fill up my KPI. And you're just having to make an investment to fill up your KPI, which is not good. Mm. So we transformed the KPI into 2 different buckets. One is making the investment, and number 2 is making the business. So we need to make the investments, and yet we also need to make the business. Meaning once we start the investment process, we are also working with the actual business team in Korea, and we are starting to melt that solution down into the actual process of operations in Korea so that they're able to use a solution. And why we are doing that is very helpful for the startups too, because often the startups are only looking at their process. There's a lot of prior process and the post process that all needs to make sense. Otherwise, their solution will not work. And often startups say, this is so expensive right now, but we can lower the price by 50%. Yeah, it's true when you only look at your solution. Yeah. But in order for me to use your solution, I got to do so much here and so much there. So eventually, it's more expensive for me to use your solution. They actually learned that lesson a lot while we are doing this due diligence in the real field. Long story short, I think working with the head office has been very helpful, and my KPI kind of tilts towards more for the business development. And I'm trying to help with their KPI. So my KPI is their KPI.
Very nice. Hee, I want to really thank you for your time. You've been very candid, including the things that was to your credits and also to the credits of others. So I really want to thank you for your time. You've been very generous and sharing a lot of interesting insights and golden nuggets.
Thank you. It was my pleasure, and thank you for having me.